Yep, I can see it, Akash. Thank you.
Great. So again, wonderful to be back. For the folks who have been interacting with me for the first time, I'm Akash from Microsoft Systems Center Product Group. Worked with multiple folks, including Silect and the partners whom Hal just talked about. It's great to see the SCOM community back, be it MP University or any other partner events. Great to see the passion and the interest in the product, and just to make sure that I just want to encourage all these events, and at the same time we want to make sure we want to put out a message that the PG is doing, to make sure whatever possible to continue the support for SCOM, build new features, build a new variation or variants of SCOM if possible, and again, looking forward to more connects like this. Having said that, let's dive into what I have to present today. I'm here to talk about what we have in store as part of SCOM releases, be it 2022 or the existing products, existing current version of SCOM. What do we have? What updates do we have in the management packs? And of course, followed by some demo on MPs, and then we have the SCOM for hybrid monitoring, what our vision is, and probably then jump into the demo. Right. Having said that, I want to talk to you guys about the existing releases from SCOM. We know that the 2016 has gone or would be going out of mainstream support soon, or rather, so I'm sorry, has gone out of mainstream support this year, earlier this year, and 2019 it's in the mainstream support. We are going to go ahead and patch it or provide updates with, if not for major significant features, but we would want to go ahead and make sure that we provide the latest and the most important DCRs which customers have been asking, and I would highly encourage folks to go ahead and upvote ideas on SCOM, SCOM user voice, SCOM ideas. Having said that, as we know, there are two long-term servicing channels. One is 2019, and the existing 2022 has been released. So we will have 2022, which G8 in April, and we will have a UR1 releasing later this year. And then for 2019, we have planned for an update rollup. Hopefully, this will be out in a week's time, which will include a lot of servicing, bug fixes, and minor enhancements on the UI. Having said that, just want to make sure that we highlight that the supportability for the older products, which is SCOM 2012, would be ending with the extended support as well, ending in July of this year. And the 2016, as I mentioned, has been out of mainstream support, but folks who are on extended can go ahead and continue to use. We will go ahead and bring in any kind of security fixes whenever possible. Great. So let's talk about SCOM 2022. Again, we just want to talk to you or highlight what have been the major major changes in 2022, as well as what our main focus is. Right. Having said that, let's talk about what's in 2022. The whole System Center 2022 is modeled around three themes, namely best-in-class data center monitoring, modernized management with Azure, and as well as manage heterogeneous infrastructure. Right. Be it on in a nutshell, you will get the simplified data center management and monitoring, whether on premises, in cloud, or across platforms. Right. We recognize your long-standing investments in System Center technologies. We aim to provide, flexibility to pick and choose the hardware, software in your environment, and as the business seats involved, without needing to fragment any management stack or moving away into, from your existing System Center investments, right? Keeping these three pillars or focus ideas in mind, let's talk about what key features have been introduced in 2022. Okay, with SCOM 2022, we've had majorly we've extended the limits under management and help embrace organization developments in terms of DevOps. Majorly starting with improved Rbac in SCOM, in Scom, user roles help you assign permissions, as we are aware of, and which can help you access monitoring data, perform various actions. User roles are applied to groups of users and are scoped to a group of monitored objects. Various personas use Scom, such as infra team, SRE team, LOB application team, and Scom admins, and they all need to work in cohesive manner with a lot of collaboration between the tool between them. With the advent of DevOps, the boundaries between these personas are shrinking, and Dev does a lot of these operations today. With SCOM 2022, we introduce a new role, which is read-only administrator, and that provides all the read permissions in SCOM, including reporting. Right. Moreover, with the new delegated administrator profile, which is read-only administrator except reporting, administrator as the you can go ahead and create custom roles, and you can use delegated admin as the base, and filter whatever categories that you want to go ahead and use, and the filter, and we'll talk about what filters are available in the upcoming slide. The next one is Microsoft Teams, is a platform of choice for massive number of customers for their collaboration needs, and people go ahead and talk, collaborate, various activities on Teams, and they spend a lot of time, right? SCOM 2022 would now support sending notifications to Microsoft Teams, replacing the Skype for Business notifications, right? And right now, this would be on a single direction, monodirection notifications. If you're looking forward to bidirectional activity in form of DevOps, we'll be more than happy to hear your feedback and see what kind of requirements does it bring in. Right. And lastly, with the ITOM compliant alerts closure, the SCOM 2022, admin users can opt to choose the alert closure of a health monitor, which is currently in an unhealthy state. Uh, they can go ahead and say, I want the older experience, which was introduced in 2019, where the users cannot go ahead and close the monitor unless close the alert unless the monitor is actually healthy. With 2022, we give the flexibility where you can go ahead and say, no, the users can go ahead and close the alerts, but then the alert will come back if the monitor is still unhealthy. Right. And let's talk about the Rbac, which I mentioned earlier. With the delegated role, you can now go ahead and choose what kind of permissions that you want. You can finally choose between the permissions, and then you can go ahead and create the you create the user role and add users into them. Right. This was something which customers have been asking from quite a while, and we wanted to make sure that 2022 brings in all these newer features. Right. And as I mentioned, there are two profiles that we've brought in 2022. One is read-only, includes all the administrative permissions, where users can go ahead and see everything, but cannot go ahead and make any changes on SCOM. Simple as that. Right. Moving to Teams integration with SCOM, users can now go ahead and send alert notifications to Teams, which improves collaboration across org. And of course, this replaces the older Skype for Business notification. Okay. And finally, the ITOM compliant alerts closure with SCOM. We have now introduced a radio button, or rather an option to choose between two radio buttons in the SCOM operations console settings, where you can go ahead and say, I want the older experience, which was in 2019, or you can go ahead and choose the newer version of newer experience of 2022. Now, we have now talked about the newer features. Let's say what has been introduced in 2022. Of course, there have been a lot of minor enhancements to the UI, which is again which is an ongoing effort, which does not qualify for me to go ahead and talk about in this big forum. But at the same time, there are a lot of features, that's a lot of improvements on the UI. Right. Keeping that in mind, we have also introduced few enhanced the supportability with 2022. This includes Windows Server SCOM 2022 installation on Windows Server 2022 and monitoring the Windows 2022 operating system itself, right? We understand that our customers have a diverse environment in terms of running workloads on Windows, Linux. Linux monitoring is one of the core focus areas for us, and we're committed to making it better for enterprises of all sizes. SCOM now supports Ubuntu 20, Oracle Linux 8, Debian 10, and Debian 11. Right. Um Not just the operating system, Windows operating system 2022, SCOM 2022 expands the support to Azure Stack Hci. Right. This is a new OS which was introduced about a year ago from Microsoft Azure team, and which is nothing but a hyper converged infrastructure HCI. And it's an operating system at the end of the day that runs on on-premise clusters with virtualized workloads. You can add, deploy, and manage Azure Stack HCI clusters in VMM 2022. The experience to manage Azure Stack clusters VMM are like that of managing Windows server clusters, right? Making it easier for you to adopt HCI. And SCOM also introduces the management pack to monitor Azure Stack HCI and focuses on the capabilities to monitor HCI scenarios for Hyper-V, S2D, software-defined networks, and failover clusters in HCI technology, right? So keeping that as keeping the supportability, or rather addressing the supportability concerns, let's talk about what are the other features that 2022 brings in. As I mentioned, there are quite a few improved installation experiences, support for SQL always on, SSH-A2 encryption for certificates, FQDN alerts. You can go ahead and see more details on on the management pack tune alerts, a tune management pack, sorry. Remove dependency on local system account, support for .NET 4.8, and of course the web console, which is available in SCOM, can now work on latest versions of browsers, right? i11, Edge 88 and later, and Chrome 88 and later. Cool. Keeping that, talking about the fundamentals of SCOM 2022, let's switch gears to management pack updates, right? As I mentioned, we have introduced two new management packs in the last 1 year. One is Azure Stack HCI, which was released a couple of months ago, and of course our big one, which is Microsoft 365, which was introduced last year, and we've gotten few updates on that as well. We'll talk about in a minute. Windows Server 2022 management pack, of course, along with the release of Windows Server 2022, we brought in the management pack. Exchange MP, we've heard a lot of feedback, last year on what MP needs to be revived and what MP needs to be re-released with latest features. We've gone ahead and released that. I would definitely encourage you folks to go ahead and try it out. And of course, Windows 11 came out, so we've gone ahead and added support for that. And of course, the management pack ecosystem has a lot of updates coming in. We've gone ahead and released remote desktops, RAS. Over the past 1 year, we've released a lot of MPs, ADCS, ADFS. A lot of them have been made version agnostics so that the end user need not go ahead and update the MPs for every version of the technology that they use. Right. So that is something that we have constantly worked or focused on. And Workflow Analyzer would be released soon. This is to help users, analyze MP performance, debugging of workflows, and this will be released with a renewed UI. Okay, and of course the work is in progress for releasing a certificate monitoring management pack. Right, this is something that we saw in user ideas, user voice, and as just to reiterate, we constantly look at SCOM user ideas. I'll go ahead and share the link to the user ideas for folks who are not aware of it. Please post your ideas and upvote whatever is, whatever feature that you think is necessary for your org. Okay. Now let's talk about the Azure Stack HCI MP. What is HCI MP? At the end of the day, it's to monitor Azure Stack HCI, which is a brand new OS which was released last year by Microsoft. Enables SCOM customers to adopt HCI without needing to rip and replace their existing monitoring setups. This is a very basic definition of HCI, is that it combines compute, and storage into a single box, which means more cost savings for the customers. So HCI is something which is kind of growing amongst all the customers who have their own data centers and would want to have, build VMs within their data centers. Uh, System Center, they have been wanting to leverage Azure Stack HCI, and the preference of these customers is to use the rich capabilities of SCOM to monitor their HCI systems. This release will help enable SCOM customers to adopt HCI without, as I mentioned, without needing to rip and replace. The management pack support, uh, the management packs, they support HCI versions 21H2, 20H2, and they're designed for SCOM 2019 UR3 or later. Right, 2019 UR3 or later is a minimum requirement for HCI. The new management packs will bundle the capabilities to monitor base Azure Stack OS, Hyper-V, Storage Spaces Direct, SDN, and HCI clusters. Right, and there, of course, these capabilities let customers to get their workloads up and running fast, which brings in simplicity, and you can go ahead and customize this management pack, and of course, helps increase the adoption rate of HCI. Okay. Let's move on to the next management pack update, which is a pretty significant one in terms of M365. Where we are going to release the latest version of M365 in terms of V3 in probably end of day today. Uh, Not jumping far ahead, with V2, which was released a few months ago, we went ahead and added the capability to monitor multiple licenses, multiple SKUs with a single watch and node. And of course, we replaced the Service Comms API with Graph API, which was, again, Service Comms API was going to get deprecated. So we've gone ahead and replaced with Graph API. Uh, and with V3, which, as I mentioned, will be released hopefully today, there are many significant changes. Few are listed on the slide. Users can now opt between the type of authentication. That is, you can choose between application, which is currently available, delegated, and certificate-based authentication. Right? MP is also replacing Skype network assessment tool with Teams network assessment tool. And another upcoming significant change allows users to use the management servers and gateways as watch and node. Right, this was something which customers have been asking. We cannot go ahead and use agents, or we do not want to use agents. We want to use management servers. This enables you to do that. The V3 does that. And we are adding a new synthetic transaction to measure Teams chat latency performance. And of course, with the V3, we have simplified the wizard more, since we are adding more flexibility in terms of authentication, and you can mix and match a lot of uh, permutations with subscription, especially. Right. Having said that, before we jump into the demo, we just want to we understand that the cloud is in itself a disruptor or alternative to the data centers, on-prem data centers. And it is common for system center customers to also be adopting cloud, right? And some of them even shutting down the data centers and fully moving to cloud. While a complete move to cloud is going to take some time, we foresee the customers having a hybrid environment for the next few years, right? And some of them have switched to hybrid permanently. Uh, their workloads would be split between on-prem and the cloud. One of the common asks we hear is for consistency of management experience and reuse of their existing investments. Okay, the customers, they want to continue to use their processes that are based on VMM, orchestrator, etc., and monitoring rules in SCOM. Right. However, they want to have a consistent cloud-based experience with minimum infrastructure to manage, and they want to leverage the advanced cloud services for governance for their entire fleet. We are aware of these asks and are working to provide system center functionality for a hybrid environment using Azure Arc and other means of connectivity. Right. I would encourage you folks to stay tuned for more. As the year progresses, we would want to make sure that SCOM is evolving, and as the hybrid needs of customers are increasing more and more, SCOM even evolves in that direction. Having said that, I would want to go ahead and switch to the demo of management packs. Harold, Mike.
All right, Akash, thank you so much. And sure, let's switch over to take a look at both the, well, a couple of the management packs that Akash referenced, including the Azure Stack Hci MP and the M365 MP. So let me go ahead and share up my screen. And just as that's coming up, again, great to see the investments, Akash, that Microsoft is making in SCOM, both for today as well as down the road. It's great to see the solution continue to get better and better over time. So I'll be showing you, take a quick look at the new Azure Stack Hci management pack, and then I'm going to hand it over to Mike, who's going to be showing us. He'll do a bit of a deeper dive with the M365 management pack. And so in this, in our lab environment here, we've got a couple of Azure Stack clusters actually within our environment, and as you can see, they appear just as any other computer does in this particular view. So the as Akash mentioned, the MP was released, I think it was in March, so just a couple of months ago. It automatically discovers and provides deep monitoring of Azure Stack Hci systems and components, including Hyper-V clustering, software-defined networking, and storage spaces direct. We can see if let's go actually hop over to the H5 dashboards. And again, here we see that integrated view of the clusters along with the other systems that are being monitored by SCOM. Scrolling down, we'll take a look at the Azure Stack Hci view. And just while I'm doing this, Akash, there were a couple of questions that came in. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to look at them, but a couple of questions came in, I think, related to Teams, and there might be a few others waiting. So if you could perhaps take a look at that while we continue the demo here. And so let's open up the Azure Stack Hci folder, and here we see a number of views that are made available through the H5 dashboard console. This dashboard is going to give us an overview of the state of our HCI system. So this is going to now filter the view down to look at HCI, and I've got a couple of, I've got some clusters here as well. So we get an overview of the state of those systems, including some of the key components, networking, logical disk, operating system, and for those that are agent-based, we get a state of the agent as well. Scrolling down, we'll see the OS performance. And one of the great things about this management pack is the fact that it just works. It's integrated, completely into the SCOM environment. It discovers these components. It does that very deep monitoring of the various components of HCI, and nothing. You don't have to do anything special in terms of getting this operational, aside from deploying an agent out to those HCI systems. You can see the state of our HCI systems, operating system performance. There are a number of rules, and actually a very significant number of rules and monitors within the management pack that are made available, that will go out and run systems, and will go out and obviously collect information, provide alerting on that information. Let's look at some of these subcategories. So again, I do have a cluster running here, so we can see the state of our cluster that is being hosted on the HCI systems. I can see the cluster state. I can see the state of the shared volumes, the health of those systems, along with, again, some of those other key metrics we saw summarized earlier, disk, network, and OS, as well as performance. There are a number of rules and monitors that are disabled by default in the management pack, so important to review those rules and monitors to see if they might be relevant to your environment, and to enable those to be able to collect additional information. Some of the views that we're going to be looking at here are based on some of those rules that are disabled or enabled. And I think, as you can see, we're in a case here where we've seen some rules that are not enabled, but if we scroll further down, might just be dealing with a little bit of a lag time here with bringing up some of these reports. Let's, in the essence of time, let's skip down and just look at real quick, look at the cluster. The state of the cluster service. We can see the clusters themselves that in this case we just have the one cluster running within the environment. If we want additional details of the state of the cluster and the various components, we can see that that here. So that's a real quick look at the Azure Stack HCI management pack. If I just flip back to the console for a moment here, you can see the breadth of the views, going all the way up to the top, the breadth of views that are available from the management pack to really give you insight into everything you really need to know about your Azure Stack HCI environment and the associated components, including, as we talked about, Hyper-V clustering and software-defined networking. Okay, so with that, let's turn our attention over to the M365 management pack. And so, Mike, I am going to hand things over to you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Mike.
Okay, good. So let me just share my screen. And here we have the landing page for M365. For those of you who haven't seen it, we configure subscriptions and then watcher nodes that use those subscriptions. So one of the major changes for V3 of the management group is that we're now providing additional methods of authentication. So let me just give this a name for our new subscription here. This page allows us to specify the type of authentication we want. Now, previously, we had only provided secret authentication. That creates an application, and there's a secret that's used for all transactions against that, that application. Some customers had concerns about that because technically there's a possibility that if somebody hacked in there, they would have access to more information than they were supposed to have. So delegated authentication is new in V3, as well as certificate authentication. Now, certificate authentication means that there is a certificate installed in Azure AD and a corresponding certificate installed on each of the watcher nodes. So it's more secure than secret in that it's not just something you know, it's also something that you have. So someone to hack into this would also need that certificate as and they have to get that. So that's a little bit more secure. The one that people are seem to be really interested in is delegated authentication. Now, in this case, user ID credentials, so username and password, are used for each of the synthetic transactions. But what that means is that you can use a user ID who has very limited access. So, for instance, if you're talking about mail, the only mailbox that that user can access is their own particular mailbox. There's no possibility that somebody can hack in and read somebody else's email. Likewise with SharePoint, they only have access to the SharePoint folders that that user is allowed to access. And so this one, I think, is going to be quite popular. With delegated authentication, we have to specify the credentials. And so we have sort of two major choices here. We can use one common set of credentials for all the services, or we can have individual credentials here. So if I enable Teams, I can put in a user ID and password that will be used for Teams. I can then use a different set for SharePoint, a different set for email, receiver, sender, etc. And if I don't specify credentials, those services can't be run with a delegated subscription. And so I think this is going to be very popular. I do suggest reading the documentation. It's well documented in there, including all the setup, and there's an entire appendix on getting the certificates working. If you are using certificate authentication, there's a new monitor that runs on the watcher node. It runs once a day, and it just checks to see if the certificate is about to expire. Trying to remember, I think it's 30 days before it expires. It would generate a warning alert, and there's a critical alert. I don't remember the numbers offhand, but I believe those are overridable parameters so that you can change them if you want to. One thing that wasn't clear, and I just want to make sure it is clear, is that the Teams chat synthetic transaction is only supported if using delegated. That's a limitation of Graph API, that the chat stuff to work has to be using a delegated so that you have a specific user who's chatting. Any other authentication, whether it's the secret or certificate, the synthetic transaction will not execute the chat and just returns zeros for values there. I don't need to complete this. One of the other things that people were asking about is the ability to use management servers and gateways as watcher nodes. So in this setup, I have 3 management servers. I don't have any gateways, but it works exactly the same way here. CampOM, this would sort, 2019 A, B, and C. Those are my 3 management servers. And if we come back here, you can see that we actually have those 3 management servers used as watcher nodes in this case, one with a certificate authentication, one with delegated authentication, and one with secret. That's the select test here. So that's something I think will be fairly popular with people. Normally the idea was that watcher nodes would be geographically distributed so that there's a watcher node near every major group of your users. So if you have you know, an East Coast office and a West Coast office, you have a watcher node in each so that you can check the performance to the various M365 endpoints. But for a number of customers, they really didn't want to be using either client machines or dedicating a server in a location as a watcher node, and they really just wanted to use one of the management servers. I believe a gateway would work equally well for distributed, so we do have that flexibility now. I don't really have a demo of this right now, but one of the things we do is we can measure the response time, basically pinging the endpoints for Office, and we would record those times. And previous management packs were using ping.exe, which is using ICOMP traffic, which is blocked by a lot of corporations. And so those rules were not of any use to anyone. The code there has been rewritten, and by default, it still generates ICOMP traffic. We don't spawn ping.exe, but it's done basically the same way. But we also allow you to override, and you can specify a port to use for the pinging. And so you could specify the HTTPS port, which is port 443, and it just does a TCP connection, measures the time for that. Unfortunately, the times between those TCP connections and pings using ICOMP are very comparable. You know, for me, they're around the 20 to 30 millisecond time, and it doesn't matter whether you're using ICOMP or TCP, you get similar numbers. So I think that will be useful because, of course, very few people are going to be blocking HTTP or HTTPS traffic. One of the other things I wanted to show, and let's just come in here, is the licensing thresholds. So we have this in the watcher node here. We have the ability to specify the parameters for all the various synthetic transactions. And one of the last ones is licensing. The reason it's done near the last is we actually go out to the watcher node, run the query to get the license SKUs, and that does take a moment. Now, fortunately, it's completed here. So for this watcher node, I can choose any or all of these SKUs that are available to me. We see how many licenses have been used, how many are remaining out of the total, and we can also set our critical and warning thresholds in absolute numbers. In previous versions of the management pack, this was expressed in percentages, and it was integer percentages. So you could either have 5% or 6%, but you couldn't have anything closer than that. And that just wasn't granular enough for a lot of customers. So now you can actually specify numbers down to the individual values here. So I can have 501 as my critical threshold if I want to. For those of you who are upgrading from the earlier M365 and you're using percentage thresholds. We take the thresholds that you are currently using as percentages, apply them to the total, and calculate these critical and warning absolute values, which you can then change any way you want. The state column here tells you if a license has expired or will be expiring, so that you know that the status. If you're going to be running and using those, you're going to have problems. And I think the final point worth talking about, and will we see it here? I can actually demonstrate that, is for the the old Skype for Business Network Assessment tool was previously used for version 1 and version 2 of this management pack. It is going out of support. And so for version 3, we use the Teams Network Assessment tool. And if you, I've already installed it here. There it is. We can choose to install the prerequisites for Teams Network Assessment. And if that's done, it will install the Teams Network Assessment tool. Now, we will keep working with the Skype for Business Network Assessment tool. So when the synthetic transactions are run, if the Teams Network Assessment tool is installed, it will be used. If Teams Network Assessment tool is not installed, but the Skype for Business Network Assessment tool is still installed, we will use that. So you don't have to upgrade all of your Watcher nodes immediately. You can upgrade them at your leisure. But you should upgrade them because at some point in time, I'm sure that the Skype for Business Network Assessment tool will simply stop working. But you don't have to do it all immediately. I think that covers all of the high points I wanted to talk about here. Please look at the user's guide. There's a list of a longer set of changes, and it's all documented in there. So that's the end of my part here. Over to you, Harold.
All right, that's great, Mike. Thank you so much, and great to see those improvements in the new M365 management pack. Akash, looks like you're still on board. I'm just looking at the questions. There is one question related to the HTML dashboards from Mohammed. He says the Office 365 management pack comes with amazing HTML dashboards. How can we create similar ones? What resources can we use to create something like that?
Yeah, I saw the question. So thanks for the feedback, Mohammed. Yes, we did put a lot of thought for developing or designing those HTML dashboards. But of course, there is public documentation on how to create dashboards using the available widgets. For custom dashboards, probably we can connect offline, or there is a blog on them on how to go ahead and develop those dashboards. I'll paste that link on the chat.
Yeah, perfect. That's great, Akash. Thank you. All right. I don't see anything else. Any other questions for you, Akash? I would like to thank you so much for joining us today. Again, as we said, great to see all the work Microsoft is doing with Scom and with the add-ons to Scom. So again, Akash, thank you for joining us today.